Hello everyone, this is Justin Joseph for ProjectCoe.com, back with yet another video review, this time surrounding the Xbox 360 exclusive RPG, Mass Effect. Mass Effect is quite the unique title, and it could almost be considered rare to be frank, especially given the fact that it's an RPG on the Xbox 360. Those two terms just don't normally associate very often, especially given the fact that the system has literally bombed in Japan, and we all know that Japan usually is the country where most relevant RPGs come from, and that proves to be a testament for why we only have our Eternal Sonata and Blue Dragon on the console. But BioWare is actually the makers of Mass Effect, who are also responsible for Jade Empire and KOTOR, and since they're an actual Western developer, Mass Effect sort of serves to be an exception to the norm on the 360. But in a more specific sense, Mass Effect actually sort of borrows from Jade Empire and KOTOR formula-wise, in that it's an RPG which is more player-driven, which features an actual solid plot and a really wonderful conversation system, and that's in part of what I love the most about the game. The universe of Mass Effect actually reacts to you as a character and as a representative of mankind, rather than you reacting to the game, like most new releases tend to fare nowadays. But given that in mind, anytime that you actually interact with a character, in a conversation, you're given access to a possible 6 different actual lines of dialogue to say back to whatever they say to you, which is sort of split into a 3-tiered response system, which range from you being a possible jerk to the person, or you being absolutely neutral, or you being an actual goody two-shoes, which everyone that you talk to likes, but you sort of get a bad rap for just because you're being a goody two-shoes. It's a very cool system, and I absolutely loved how they actually mapped it to you being an influence to the plot as a whole, and it's just something that anyone that enjoys good storytelling would be attracted to. It's just unfortunate that Mass Effect as a whole has a lot of technical issues, especially when it comes to frame rate and lockup. It doesn't matter what you're doing, whether you're running around aimlessly or if you're engaged in combat, the frame rate is absolutely all over the place. It is constantly hiccuping, and even though it somehow does not actually impede too much with the gameplay, it is there, it is noticeable, and it's simply unacceptable that it actually made it past the testing phases of the development. But so it's unfortunate, but seriously, what the heck. And even with the lockup, there's actually a boss fight which has a cutscene in it, in which the game actually locked up on me 3 different times in a row in the same spot, just because of one thing that happened, and that's really annoying, and it really shouldn't have, given how challenging that boss fight can be. So even though again, it doesn't really break the gameplay like it would probably with any other game, it's still unacceptable, and it really should not have been there in the final product, so it had to go mentioned. But speaking of the fun anyway, it is a fun game. Mass Effect is enjoyable, especially with the battle system, even though it isn't entirely new. But I mean, if you're a gamer that enjoys taking down your adversaries with guns or special powers, which are called biotics in Mass Effect, there is no reason why this won't tickle your fancy. I mean, you get your standard issue pistol, you can have a sniper rifle, a shotgun, an assault rifle, or you can toss around your enemies or lift them up off the ground or cause negative effects to them if you want to. It just really depends on how you actually like to mess with your enemies, and there's a lot that you can do in Mass Effect, so there's a lot that you can enjoy if you're an action RPG enthusiast, so that's always good. On the visual side, Mass Effect is definitely a great looking game, but it's certainly not the best of what the 360 currently offers, especially when it comes to exclusives. The actual character models are actually very well done, they're extremely detailed, and the facial expressions are beyond mind-blowing considering how many there are and how they actually, really show the emotion when it comes to a character actually interacting with you and reacting to what you say. But everything else is sort of repetitive, especially in the planets. Each system that you can actually fly to in your ship has at least 1 to 3 that you can actually explore, but there's way more of that, so it's kind of lame that you can't explore every planet, and the ones that you do sort of have a repetitive terrain and just a very similar layout across the board, which is kind of unfortunate because it really lends to you feeling kind of bored sometimes. But that's really only if you notice it, but I'd imagine that you would, because it is very noticeable. And given that, there are actually optional missions that you can undertake throughout the entire campaign, and that'll actually decide how long the game is for you. People can complete this game in as short as 12 hours or as many as 40, depending on how many of those side jobs you actually choose to complete. It just really depends. So you're literally in control of how long the game is for you. and hopefully that actually is rectified in the sequel, and hopefully the trilogy concluder that actually is set to be released, in the next 5 to 10 years or however long they choose to do it. Mass Effect is a great game. It actually got an 8.9 out of 10 from Project COE, which gave it a silver medal. But again, it's the technical issues were just too noticeable. But again, it's a fun game. The conversation system is absolutely awesome. It really brings out the humanistic aspects of this game. It just really brings it to life and makes it seem like a lot more real. So hopefully you haven't, bought into this being a completely negative game. I did sort of trash it in the technical side, but seriously, it is a great game. BioWare definitely should be proud of what they were able to pull off, especially with the conversation system and the voice work that they did, because they actually scored some celebrities to do the voices. But seriously, it can't go unnoticed that it does have issues, but it is fun, and that is what matters. So again, an 8.9 out of 10 and a silver medal, and hopefully you actually take what I say to heart, but not too much to heart. Thanks, guys.